I never imagined I'd live to see a day where my heart would be shattered by the one person I thought would become a daughter to me. My name is Sophia, and as I sit here, now reflecting on the events that unfolded, I still can't believe the cruelty I witnessed from my daughter-in-law in that crowded restaurant. That day, I had planned nothing but a peaceful family dinner one I thought would bring our little family closer. It had been a while since we'd all been together. My son, Marcus, my daughter-in-law, Lily, and their 2 children, plus myself, the grandmother. We lived busy lives, and between Marcus's demanding job, Lily's career, and my own responsibilities, family time had become scarce. But despite the chaos of our separate worlds, I cherished every moment I could spend with them. I truly believed that nothing was more important than family, that we were meant to be there for one another, through thick and thin. I had carefully chosen the restaurant, a warm, family-friendly, and quiet place nestled just outside of town. It wasn't too fancy, but it was perfect for the occasion. I'd been feeling a deep longing to reconnect with my son, who had become increasingly distant in recent months, and I knew this dinner could be the opportunity to rebuild that closeness we once shared. I wanted to catch up, laugh, and share a meal like we used to before life got in the way. As I entered the restaurant, the familiar scent of grilled meats and fresh bread filled the air. I could feel the buzz of chatter and the hum of clinking glasses around us. I had hoped to bring a little warmth into our fractured bond, to revive the joy that I thought had always been present in our family. Marcus had been busy with work, and Lily had been distant lately, but I believed that a simple meal would be the cure for what ailed us. The hostess led us to our table, nestled by the window, and we settled in. Marcus was his usual self, jovial, eager to share funny stories from his day, and trying his best to lighten the mood. Lily, however, sat quietly across from me, her eyes avoiding mine. Her usually warm smile was absent, replaced by a tight-lipped expression that made my chest tighten. I thought maybe she was just tired or preoccupied with something, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. We started with small talk. I asked about their children, their recent travels, and how they were managing their busy lives. But Lily seemed uninterested, giving short, curt answers. I tried to brush it off, thinking that perhaps she was simply having a bad day. When the waiter brought our menus, I glanced over at my son. "Remember when you used to love the pasta here?" I asked, trying to spark a memory from the past. "You always insisted on getting the same dish every time we came." Marcus chuckled. "I still love it," he said, looking at me fondly. "Some things never change." I was pleased to see him smiling again, but when I turned to Lily to include her in the conversation, I was taken aback. Instead of the usual friendly response, she shot me a cold, almost disdainful look. "Well, that was before we had kids," she said, her voice sharp and biting. "Things change." I sat there in shock, my mind struggling to process the harshness in her words. It was a simple comment, something I had said in an attempt to share a fond memory, but her response felt like a slap in the face. I wasn't sure what I had done wrong, but the shift in her demeanor was undeniable. I tried to laugh it off, not wanting to make a scene in front of the other diners. "Oh, I guess I'm just a little nostalgic," I said lightly, hoping to ease the tension. But Lily didn't respond. She simply stared at her menu, her face tight, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. Marcus didn't seem to notice the growing tension, or maybe he chose not to. He continued chatting about his work and the kids, but I could feel the distance between us widening. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to the woman who had once been so kind to me, so warm and welcoming. What had changed? Why was she so distant now? The rest of the meal passed in a strange, uncomfortable silence. Even though we were all seated at the same table, It felt as though we were miles apart. I tried to engage in conversation, but it was like pulling teeth. My attempts to connect were met with cold responses, and the atmosphere in the restaurant felt oppressive, as though the walls were closing in around me. The laughter of other families at nearby tables only made the silence, and ours seem louder. As the meal went on, my mind raced, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. Had I said something? Had I unknowingly crossed a line? I couldn't think of anything I had done to deserve this treatment. My heart ached as I sat there, trying to figure out what had happened to the family I thought I knew. When the waiter came to take our order for dessert, I noticed Lily was no longer even pretending to be interested in the conversation. She had her phone out, her eyes glued to the screen, tapping away. It stung, the casual dismissal, but I didn't say anything. I just kept smiling, trying to keep the peace, hoping this was just a bad moment that would pass. After dessert, I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a moment to collect myself. I couldn't shake the sense of betrayal that gnawed at me. What had happened to our connection? Was it my fault? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing. Art. I had always prided myself on being a good mother-in-law. Always there when they needed me. Always trying to help. What was going on? When I returned to the table, I was met with an uncomfortable silence. Lily was still looking at her phone, and Marcus was staring down at his plate, seemingly lost in thought. It was as though the energy had drained from the room, and I felt like an outsider in my own family. I cleared my throat, trying to break the tension. "Is everything all right?" I asked softly. Marcus looked up, startled, as though he had forgotten I was there. "Oh, yeah. Everything's fine," he said quickly, but his voice lacked conviction. His eyes flicked to Lily, who didn't even look up from her phone. That was when I realized something was terribly wrong. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something deeper, something I hadn't been privy to. I could no longer deny it. There was a rift between us, and I had no idea how it had come to be. But I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't just about the pastor. It wasn't just about the small comment I had made. As we waited for the check, the oppressive silence continued to weigh on me. The buzzing chatter of other diners felt like a distant hum, and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart in my chest. I had no idea what I had done to deserve this treatment, but I was determined to find out. Little did I know, this dinner would be the beginning of a long and painful journey. A journey that would force me to confront not just my relationship with Lily, but with my own son, the man I had raised with so much love and care. And soon, I would discover that the reason for Lily's hostility was far darker and more complicated than I could have ever imagined. The days following that dinner were a blur of confusion and heartache. I couldn't shake the sting of Lily's words. They replayed in my mind over and over again, each time cutting deeper. I tried to brush it off, but the more I thought about it, the more it became impossible to ignore. There was something going on beneath the surface, something I wasn't being told. I felt like an outsider in my own family, like I was watching from the outside looking in. But no matter how much I tried to reach out, everything seemed to slip further away. The following day, I tried to call Marcus twice, but both times my calls went unanswered. I left a message, telling him how much I missed him and that I wanted to talk. I was hoping that he would pick up the phone and explain whatever had happened. That perhaps he was just as confused as I was. That the silence was deafening. I spent the next few days in a haze of worry, making every excuse I could think of to call or text him. But nothing ever came back. My messages were left unread, and every time I checked my phone, I felt the weight of the silence pressing down on me. My son, the boy I had raised with so much love and care, was turning his back on me, and I couldn't understand why. Even worse, Lily seemed to have made it her mission to make sure I felt excluded. Every time I reached out, she was always the one to intercept the conversation. I could feel the tension growing, like a thick fog hanging over our family. My attempts at reaching out were met with hostility, and yet, no explanation was ever offered. I knew I couldn't just sit by and wait for them to come to me. I had to act, but every time I tried to bridge the gap, I was met with an unspoken wall. I waited for Marcus to reach out, to explain why things had turned so cold between us. I had tried calling, texting, and even sending thoughtful messages to let him know I was here for him. I even sent a bouquet of flowers to their house, hoping it might warm things up, but there was no response. No gratitude, just silence. That was when the self-doubt began to settle in. Maybe I had made a mistake. Maybe I had pushed too hard, been too involved in their lives. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I had always tried to give them space. I had always tried to be understanding of their busy lives. So why was it that, in their moment of need, I felt like I was the one being punished? In an attempt to gain some clarity, I reached out to my friend Rachel. She had known Marcus and me for years and was the kind of person I could confide in when I felt like I couldn't understand the world around me. I trusted her insight. But when I called her, I was taken aback by her tone. She sounded like she was holding something back. "Sophia, I think you need to know something," she said cautiously. "What is it, Rachel?" I asked, my heart racing. The suspense in her voice made me feel uneasy. "Lily, she's been acting strange for a while now. I don't know how to say this, but I think there's more to her behavior than just a bad mood or stress from work." My stomach churned. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "What do you mean? What's been going on with her?" Rachel paused for a long moment before speaking again. "I've heard rumors, Sophia. I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I think you deserve to know. Lily isn't exactly who she says she is." I felt a chill run through me. "What do you mean? Who is she?" Rachel hesitated again before continuing. "She's been hiding things, Sophia. Big things. I don't know all the details, but I've heard whispers about her past things that don't add up." I was stunned into silence. What could Rachel be talking about? Lily, the woman I had embraced into my family, the woman I thought I knew so well, had a past she was hiding from everyone. "What do you know, Rachel?" I asked, my voice trembling with both fear and curiosity. Rachel went on, her voice low and full of concern. "I don't know the specifics, but I've heard that Lily has been involved in some pretty questionable things before she met Marcus. I've heard people say that she was in some kind of trouble before, something to do with a failed business venture and a messy divorce. It's all a bit blurry, but there are enough whispers to make me believe it's true." My mind raced, trying to process what Rachel was telling me. Could this be why Lily had been so cold toward me? Was she hiding her past? Afraid of me finding out? Was this the reason behind her sudden animosity? "I don't want to believe it," I said softly, almost to myself. "Lily's always been kind to me. She's always been respectful." Rachel sighed. "I know, Sophia, but people aren't always what they seem. I'm just telling you what I've heard, because I think you deserve to know. Maybe that's why. She's been pushing you away. Maybe she's afraid you'll find out about her past." I sat in stunned silence for a long while after that conversation. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the picture was so much darker than I had ever imagined. Lily wasn't just angry or distant. There was something deeper at play. Something she had been hiding for years. The thought that Lily had been living a lie, that she had been hiding something so big from us all, made my heart ache. I wanted to confront her, to demand the truth. But I was terrified. What if the truth was something I couldn't bear? What if it was worse than I could ever imagine? What if everything I thought I knew about my son's marriage was built on a foundation of lies? But no matter how much I tried to convince myself that it was just a rumor, something deep inside told me that Rachel wasn't wrong. There was something hidden beneath Lily's perfect exterior, and it was only a matter of time before it came to light. And as much as I wanted to avoid it, I knew I couldn't let this go. I had to confront Lily. I had to find out what she was hiding. And no matter how painful it might be, I had to find a way to save my family before it was too late. The storm was coming, and I had no idea just how much it would tear us all apart. For days, the turmoil I felt in my chest weighed heavier and heavier. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. The more I thought about Lily's coldness, her sharp words, and the cryptic conversations I'd had with Rachel, the more certain I became that there was something deeply wrong, something much darker than I could have imagined. I spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, wondering what had happened to my family. Why had things turned so ugly between us? My mind was tangled with questions. Had Marcus always known about Lily's past? Was he hiding something from me? If she was so secretive about her past, what else was she hiding? I could no longer deny it. This wasn't just about some petty family drama. This was about deep secrets that could shatter everything. And I had to know the truth. I decided to confront her. I didn't know how, or when, or even what I was hoping to achieve. But I had to speak to Lily. She had to know that I wasn't going to just stand by and let her destroy our family from the inside. It took a few more days before I worked up the courage. I called Marcus again, but once again, no answer. I left another message, this time pleading for him to talk to me. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. I needed answers, and I needed them now. But as I waited for the phone to ring, I knew it wasn't Marcus I had to confront. It was Lily. She was the one who held the answers. She was the one who had built this wall between us. I found out from a neighbor that Lily had taken the kids to the park one afternoon. I had a strange feeling in my gut that this might be the moment. As I drove over to their house, my heart raced. In my chest, I wasn't sure how to approach her, or if I could even get a word in without her shutting me down completely. But I had to try. I knocked on their front door, my hands trembling as I waited for someone to answer. The seconds felt like hours as I stood there, a mixture of hope and dread swirling inside me. When the door finally opened, it was Marcus who greeted me. His face was strained, his eyes tired, but he offered a polite smile. "Hi, Mom," he said, quietly, stepping aside to let me in. I could tell he was on edge. There was something in his posture, in the way he avoided eye contact, that told me he was either hiding something or just too exhausted to deal with the situation. "I need to talk to Lily," I said, my voice firm but laced with a quiet desperation. Marcus's smile faltered for a moment. He glanced over his shoulder, where I could see Lily sitting on the couch, her back to us, as though she was pretending to be lost in the kids' game they had been playing. There was a coldness in her demeanor that sent a shiver down my spine. "Mom," he said hesitantly, "can we just talk for a minute? Please, let's not do this right now." I could feel the air thickening between us, but I was done waiting. "Marcus, I need to know what's going on. I need to speak to her," I insisted. "Now." Marcus hesitated for a long moment, and, for the briefest instant, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes, something like guilt. But then he gave a resigned sigh and nodded toward the living room. "She's not going to like this, but all right. I'll tell her you're here." I followed him into the living room, where Lily remained, still pretending to be engrossed in the kids' laughter. I felt my stomach knot, This wasn't just a conversation. This was the reckoning dot as Marcus walked over to her. I could see her stiffen. She was aware of my presence but was too proud to acknowledge it directly. She hadn't even looked at me yet. "Lily, Sophia's here," Marcus said quietly, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air. Lily slowly turned her head, her eyes locking with mine. I could see a flicker of something in her gaze, anxiety maybe? Guilt? But she quickly masked it with a forced tight smile. "Hi, Sophia," she said in a tone that was too polite to be genuine. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "Lily, I need to know what's going on," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "What's all this animosity about? What's going on between us? Why have you been pushing me away? What are you hiding?" For a moment there was only silence. Lily's eyes flicked to Marcus for support, and I saw his jaw tighten. He wasn't ready for this confrontation, and I could tell that this wasn't how he had planned his afternoon to go. Lily's hands gripped the edge of the couch, her knuckles white. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice now icy and dismissive. "There's nothing going on. I've been busy. We've all been busy, Sophia. Don't lie to me," I shot back, a bitter taste rising in my throat. "You're hiding something, Lily. I know it. I can feel it in the way you act around me, the way you've treated me, and the way you've pushed Marcus and me apart. What's the truth? What are you so afraid of?" She stood up, her posture tense, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of anger in her eyes. "You don't get it, do you, Sophia?" she snapped. "You've never really seen me. You've never really understood me. I've been putting on a mask for so long, pretending to be this perfect little daughter-in-law, and you just expect me to keep playing along with it." "Playing along with what?" I asked, my voice trembling with the intensity of the conversation. "What have you been hiding?" Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a glimpse of the truth beneath her cold exterior. "I didn't ask for any of this," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't ask to be part of a family that's full of expectations. I didn't ask to be the perfect wife or the perfect mother. I didn't ask to be the perfect daughter-in-law either." Suddenly, Lily's words came pouring out in a flood of emotion, everything she had been holding back for so long. "I never wanted to be like this. I was married before Marcus before I met him, and it was a disaster. I made some bad choices. I thought I could escape it all by starting over, by marrying into a perfect family. But now I see, it was all just a way to hide from my past." The room fell silent. I stared at her, shocked. The perfect, poised woman who had always seemed so in control was unraveling before my eyes. "I didn't want Marcus to know about my past," she continued, her voice raw and broken. "I didn't want him to see who I really was. I thought if I could just keep this perfect front up, maybe I could outrun the mistakes I made, the life I left behind. But I can't anymore. It's catching up to me, Sophia. Everything is coming apart." The revelation hit me like a tidal wave, and suddenly everything made sense. The coldness, the hostility, the lies, all of it stemmed from a past Lily couldn't outrun. I felt a strange mix of sympathy and anger. How had she kept this hidden for so long? How had she thought she could keep it buried forever? "I don't know what to do with this," I said, my voice quiet, the weight of her confession pressing on me. "But I'm not going to turn my back on you, Lily. You're family, and I want to help you. But we have to be honest with each other." Lily looked at me, her eyes filled with tears. For the first time, I saw the woman she had been hiding behind all the walls she had built. The hurt, the shame, the fear, it was all there. "I don't deserve your help," she whispered. But I need it. I took a deep breath, stepping forward and gently placing my hand on hers. No one is perfect, Lily. But we're family. And that's what family is for. To help each other. To face the past and move forward together. And in that moment, I knew that this was just the beginning. It wouldn't be easy, and there will be more challenges ahead, but I was willing to do whatever it took to heal the rift in my family, whatever it took to rebuild the trust that had been broken. We had a long road ahead of us, but for the first time in weeks I felt hope, and I knew we could make it through together.